The Middle East is once again holding its breath. A region no stranger to the tremors of geopolitical tension is bracing for what could become one of the most consequential standoffs of the modern era. A collision course between Washington, Tehran, and Tel Aviv that has the world watching with growing anxiety. For weeks, behind closed doors and through back-channel diplomacy, the United States and Iran have been engaged in delicate, high-stakes negotiations. Talks aimed at finding a diplomatic path forward on Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. But as those conversations have stalled, as trust has eroded, and as red lines have hardened on both sides, a far more dangerous scenario is beginning to take shape. Donald Trump, never a president to hide his hand, has made his position clear. If diplomacy fails, and if Iran refuses to come to the table on terms the United States and its allies can accept, then Israel may act. And if Israel acts, the signals coming out of Washington suggest that the United States will not stand in the way. This is not bluster for the cameras. This is the strategic calculus of an administration that has grown impatient with Iran's nuclear ambitions, frustrated by years of negotiations that have yielded little, and increasingly aligned with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's long-held conviction that the only language Tehran truly understands is the language of consequence. To understand how we arrived at this razor's edge, we have to go back. Iran's nuclear program has been a source of international alarm for more than 2 decades. When the Obama administration brokered the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal, it was hailed as a diplomatic breakthrough. Iran agreed to limit its uranium enrichment in exchange for the lifting of crippling economic sanctions. For a moment, it seemed like a resolution was possible. But then came Trump's first term. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the deal, a decision Tehran called a betrayal, and Washington called a necessary correction to a flawed agreement. Iran responded by gradually rolling back its own commitments, ramping up enrichment, and advancing its nuclear infrastructure to levels that have alarmed inspectors and analysts alike. By the time diplomacy was attempted again under Biden, the gap between the two sides had widened enormously. Now, in this new chapter, with Trump back in the White House, with Iran enriching uranium closer to weapons grade than ever before, and with Israel watching every development with the sharp, unblinking focus of a nation that has always said it will never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, the stakes have never been higher. The talks that were recently attempted were described by insiders as tense, fragile, and deeply uncertain. Iran came to the table with conditions, the United States came with demands, and in between, diplomats tried to thread a needle that grows narrower by the day. Iran insists its nuclear program is purely for civilian energy purposes. But the evidence gathered by the International Atomic Energy Agency tells a more troubling story. Enrichment levels, centrifuge counts, and restricted access to inspection sites have all raised serious red flags in the international community. And so here we are. Trump has reportedly told allies and allowed signals to leak to the press that he supports Israel's right and perhaps its readiness to strike Iranian nuclear facilities if these talks collapse entirely. Israeli officials, for their part, have not been shy about their preparations. Publicly, they speak of diplomacy. Privately, those who know the Israeli military establishment say that strike plans are not hypothetical. They are rehearsed, refined, and ready. The implications of such a strike would be staggering. Iran has made clear that any military action against its nuclear sites would trigger a response, one that could draw in Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iranian-backed militias across Iraq and Syria, and potentially ignite a regional war that would dwarf the conflicts that have already shattered so much of the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes, could become a flashpoint. Energy markets, already volatile, could spiral. And American troops stationed throughout the region could find themselves in the crosshairs of retaliation they never sought.